Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Finley, and today we have a great episode coming up because I actually have been soloing it for the past few months. If you've been, keeping up with that, I've had a guest on like randomly every once in a while, but I'm trying to get back into the routine of having a guest on every other week. And so today I'm actually on a call with Caroline, and she's been on before, and she's actually in a completely different country. She's in Indonesia, and we have her on a call today, and we're just going to be talking about what the gap year for her has looked like. So welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Anytime. Okay, so first of all, I kind of have to explain because I haven't had like a guest on, and I have to explain like what we're kind of shifting into, like the question that I'm going to be asking people from now on. And that question is, if you had the chance to give every teenage girl in the world a piece of advice, what would that advice be? So Caroline, you get to be the first person to answer that question on the podcast.
Oh, yay, have fun. I think the first piece of advice that came to mind would be to be kind to everyone. Genuinely just talk to everyone, treat everyone with kindness. I look back at high school and regret not doing that, and I regret being like cliquey and kind of exclusive towards people. And then I look at my cousin who's a senior this year, and I see that she is the definition of kindness. Like, she walks with such kindness in her school.
I thought you were about to say she's the definition of cliquey.
What'd you say?
I thought you were about to say she was the definition of cliquey. And I was like, Caroline.
No, she's the definition of kindness. She was like homecoming queen and Miss CHS, which is like a huge deal too. Like, everyone loves her. Like, genuinely everyone. And she just radiates kindness. So I always look at her and I'm like, man, I wish I lived like that in high school. And my mom always told me to, but I didn't. So I wish I just lived being friends with everyone, being kind to everyone. You don't have to be best friends with everyone, but you can be kind to everyone. And I wish I had lived high school.
Yeah.
Based off of that piece of advice.
Yeah, that's really good because I feel like in middle school, that's like a lot of how like it still like can be hard sometimes, and I'm definitely not perfect at it, and neither is my friend group, but like at the same time, we were a lot worse about it in middle school. And now that we've stepped into high school, honestly, a lot of people left my school to go to public school. And so it's kind of like a lot smaller of a group now. And we just kind of all like get along better. And we just, I don't know, we've learned to just like not like, it's not like, oh, you always have to sit here in this class with this friend, and you always like, it's not just like, it's just like whatever, nobody cares. You just do kind of go with the flow, if that makes sense, instead of like where in middle school it was like, this class I sit with this friend, and if I don't, that means I hate them. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know, it's just become a lot more relaxed and a lot better in that way.
I think it comes with spiritual maturity, and I think everyone matures at different rates, but like, you can see my cousin's spiritual maturity in the fact that she's just genuinely kind to everyone. And I think it's a sign of spiritual maturity that you truly like live out the fruits of the Spirit, and one of the fruits of the Spirit is like love, and so and even kindness. So if you're like loving on people and you're kind to them, like it shows your spiritual maturity, and it shows like your genuine love for the Lord. It overflows in your love for other people.
Yeah, right. And it's totally like, even if like someone else, like you really struggle to like get along with certain people, it's like if you're diving into the word, like, that's how you're going to be able to live out the fruits of the Spirit, because you can't overflow if your cup is not filled in the first place. And so, you have to be like diving into the word yourself. So what has been your favorite part about your gap year so far?
I think so far I've most enjoyed getting to know new people and a new culture, and like seeing how they do things. There's been parts of the culture that I would say I haven't necessarily enjoyed. Like, it's just different. But then the things I have enjoyed have been that people are genuinely so kind. And it kind of goes back to what I was just saying. Like, they are so inclusive. They're so welcoming. They want to spend time with you. Whereas in America, we're very independent. Like, I want to do this myself. I will go to this place by myself. I'll go alone. I'll sit alone. I'll eat alone. Like, we don't mind being alone. In Indonesia, everyone does everything together, and it's fun.
That is so fun.
You're always hanging out with friends. You're always together, and it makes for like a tight knit community because if you're going to go to the mall to grab a pair of shoes that you need, it's kind of expected that your friends are going to go with you. And so there's not even this pressure of like, oh, who do I invite? It's like you just text your friends and be like, hey, I need to go. Who wants to go? And so I really love that. That's been really good to help build community and keep homesickness away. So yeah, that's probably been my favorite. The food is not necessarily my favorite, but I'm learning to like it.
Yeah, that's so cool. In America, I think we definitely just get so comfortable with like being alone, and it's not even necessarily, sometimes people just genuinely like being alone, but at the same time, like maybe you do want to be with other people, but you're just comfortable in the fact that like you don't have to reach out to other people, and you don't like, it's easy to get comfortable really fast, which is what we've been talking about when, at church a lot. We've been talking about, just, I don't know how to say it, but like just how to get out of your comfort zone, because like, it's so important, because God literally calls us to leave our comfort zone. He calls, like all the disciples literally left their entire lives to follow him. And, so it's just like, we need to be able to learn to give that up. And it's like, you might say like, yeah, I'd be willing to give that up. But like when it actually comes down to it, like, would you be willing to give that up? And at the same time, it kind of comes with like, I don't know if you've been keeping up with Sadie's podcast while you're gone, but I was listening to her newest episode last night, and they were talking about kind of like this kind of like relates, but insecurity. And it's like, no, like I'm not insecure about this. But then when it comes down to the fact that like, we delete social media or something like that, we then start to worry like, oh, are people going to think different? Like, we are insecure when it comes down to it. And so just making sure like, I don't know, just living out, maybe it is going to take like stepping out of your comfort zone to realize like, okay, I need to defeat this, or something like that. I don't know if that's making sense what I'm saying, but
yeah, it does. I think oftentimes we live with like a fear of rejection. Like, oh, what if I text my friends and they're all busy and then I have to go alone?
And then exactly. And it's just like, well, I could have like not asked them in the first place, and it's like, and it be like not embarrassing that like I had to go alone, but instead now everybody knows, Okay, so since we talked about your favorite part, you have you said the food wasn't your favorite, but what has been like the hardest part, or like your least favorite part so far?
The hardest part, I would say physically, is that I got sick in November, early November, which kind of led to it being more mentally and spiritually tough, because I don't think you realize how much you take for granted, like simple things like saltine crackers and ginger ale, and like having your mom take care of you, or even being able to call your mom. Like if it was noon for me, it was midnight for my mom, so I couldn't even call her and be like, Mom, like, can I take medicine again, or like what should I do? Like, it was the first time as an adult I was by myself, but I couldn't even call my mom. And it gave me such a greater appreciation for her and all she does for me, and a greater appreciation for the comforts of home, like my comfy bed and being able to run out and grab what I need at the store and things like that.
Yeah.
Another difficult part has been like communication. Just because the language barrier, I feel like I'm finally learning language, and I finally have a good grasp on like communication. But I've been here almost now 3 months, and for the first 3 months, I could barely communicate, if at all. And that can be so difficult and so frustrating, because you're just kind of feel stuck and isolated, because you're around a bunch of people who you can't even speak to, even if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And so it really gave me such a desire to learn language. And from the beginning, like, I've had to see language as a way to worship the Lord, and learning language as a way to speak to other people. He says go to all the nations, and to go to a nation you need to be able to speak to the nation and communicate with them, and he's really equipping me to do that, and I'm really grateful. But it doesn't take away from how difficult it is to try to become as fluent as possible, as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot for my brain. They say that when you learn a new language, you need an extra like 1 to 2 hours of sleep every night because it's so exhausting on your brain. And I've definitely felt that. Like,
Yeah.
I need so much sleep, I need so much rest, and I feel like all I do is study language.
Yeah.
And yeah, it gets really difficult, but
Yeah.
it's been rewarding to be able to have conversations with people. And I finally have enough words to be able to tell people my story and tell people about my life and what the Lord's done in my life. And to be able to do that is exciting.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and I'm sure that's so exhausting. My brain literally hurts after I even leave Spanish class, so I can't imagine just kind of being thrown into this culture and just having to adjust, you know. I'm sure that was like a total culture shock. Which, like, how long would you say, like, it took you to kind of, like, I know you're still, like, learning the language, but kind of just, like, get over the culture shock in a way?
Yeah. They say that oddly enough, I actually learned this like yesterday, that apparently the cycle of culture shock, there's this whole scientific cycle to it, and I haven't fully studied it, so I could be kind of wrong about this, but apparently that cycle takes 9 months.
Wow.
But, so I don't know where I'm at in that cycle. Honestly, I want to look that up and research it more, but I would say that initial like shock phase, I got over within the first like month, probably. Within the first 2 weeks, I was able to like independently go out in the city and like figure things out.
Yeah.
But it took a month for me to be like, okay, this is normal.
Yeah.
Like, it may not be my version of normal, but this is someone else's version of normal, and I need to see them and see their version as normal as God's creation, just as much as I see me and my life and my version of normal as God's creation, and realize that He created us all in His image, and have an appreciation for that. And so I would say now I have a greater appreciation for people and the way they live and what I can learn from them and from the way they live.
Yeah, that's really cool. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying about being comfortable, but like you've kind of talked about, you know, the culture and meeting people and talking to people and, you know, making friends and all this stuff. And it's like, I'm curious, like, what has that, I'm kind of asking for the podcast, but also just for me, because we haven't really caught up in a little bit about a lot of things. But like, what did it look like, you know, just meeting new people and making friends? Like, what did that journey and like process look like?
I think every time I meet someone new, I see the Lord's kindness in Him bringing me that person, and it's given me such a attitude of gratitude for the Lord and His kindness, because every friend that I've made has been from the most random circumstances that honestly sometimes I don't even know how to like explain to you where I met that person.
Yeah.
My closest friend, like, I met her at basketball, and I'm her coach, and all of a sudden we became the best of friends, and she speaks English, and that was like truly the Lord's kindness to bring me a friend who speaks English immediately. Other friends I've made have just been from consistency in going to the same grocery store or going to the same basketball. We play basketball like Sunday nights, and showing up every time. I've made friends with some of the girls there. And so sometimes making friends just looks like showing up.
Yeah.
And saying like, okay, Lord, I don't know why like I'm showing up here. Like, I feel like it's kind of pointless, but I trust you. And getting to sit there and watch His kindness over and over and over again to bring people into my life, it's been really sweet, and it's given me so much more trust for Him and for His plan to see Him bring me people out of random circumstances that I didn't plan. Like, another girl I met at basketball, and I didn't want to go to basketball that night. Like, I had convinced myself I was just going to go home. I was like, nope, I want to go home. I'm tired. Like, this is terrible. It's so late at night. It's raining. It's dark. Like, I'm just ready to go home. And then I decided to just go anyways. I was like, maybe I'll just stay like 30 minutes and then go home. I went, met this girl, and now we've become really good friends, and she's the sweetest, and she doesn't really speak English, so it's been really good for my language. But if I hadn't have gone, I wouldn't have met her.
Yeah.
And so I was like, thank you, Lord.
Yeah, that's so cool. How common is like it for people there to speak English?
I would say that a lot of young adults and young people speak broken English, but you can understand it. Honestly, I was having a conversation with some of my teammates, and we were all laughing at how our English is transitioning to be broken English. We're using a lot of the phrases and words and improper grammar that all of our friends use just because it's what we're around.
Yeah.
And yeah, so a lot of kids speak English because they learn it at school. Just like we learn Spanish in America, they learn English here.
Okay.
And a lot of young adults, like college kids, have to take English as a class, just like we take Spanish as a class in college.
Mm-hmm.
And so they speak like decent English, and they always want to practice with you. So if they see you, they want to talk to you in English because they want good practice.
Yeah.
But as for like adults, I would say most don't. And if they do, it's like, you know, thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they call everyone a mister, whether they're a girl or a boy. If I'm walking down the street, everyone's gonna yell, "Hey, Mister, Mister!" It's never Miss, Mrs. Girl. It's always Mister.
That's so funny. That's cool that like everyone wants to come up if they see you and they know you speak English. They want to come up and talk to you because, like, again, in America, if you know someone that speaks Spanish that sees someone that speaks English, or someone that speaks English sees someone that speaks Spanish, we're not like running up to each other trying to like get practice, you know, being intentional about those conversations like we probably should be. But that's just really cool that like everyone's, you know, wanting to do that. It seems like a really cool community. So the next thing would be, what is one of the biggest things that you've learned so far?
I've kind of already touched on it too, but the Lord's kindness.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a phrase. So my friend, actually, he uses this phrase all the time, and for a while I didn't understand it at all. And then since coming to Indo, I've begun to understand it more and more every day. But like, the Lord is so kind, and I think within his kindness comes like his faithfulness and his gentleness and like just a sweet like tenderness about him that like comes alongside the fear and reverence I have for him, because he brings me people, he brings me the silliest things. So a little side story, I'm on a visa run in Malaysia right now, and one of the things that I've wanted so bad is taco seasoning. Like, if I could just have taco seasoning, I could make our team tacos for team dinner every once in a while, and it would be so sweet. Like, what a way to surprise them and to have a little bit of a comfort of home would be to have taco seasoning. Okay, well, it doesn't exist in Indonesia. Can't find it. It's not a thing. And so I get to Malaysia, and I'm walking around in a random grocery store, and there is like McCormick, like they sell it at Walmart in America, taco seasoning. And I was like, this isn't even something I had prayed for. Like, I had said it to so many people. I had said it out loud. The Lord knows my thoughts. He knows my words. But I hadn't gone to him and been like, Lord, please can you give me taco seasoning? Like, I hadn't done that. But in his kindness, I didn't even have to go to him and ask. He knew I wanted taco seasoning. He knew what that would mean to me. Like, it sounds so silly that taco seasoning means so much, but it genuinely, like,
made
I'm
me
so happy. Like, it brought me so much joy to find taco seasoning. And there it was in the store, and there were like 5 left in the whole store, and I bought all 5. And I was like, Lord, like, you didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna die without taco seasoning. You know, I was able to find Doritos and Pop-Tarts and Celsius. Like, I didn't need all those things to survive. I would not die without them. Honestly, I would be healthier without them. But he was so kind to bring them to me, and I was like, Lord, like, there's no other word to describe that but kindness. Like, I didn't ask him for any of those things, yet he gave them to me, and he gave them to me in abundance. Yeah, that's
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of, well, that reminded me, I heard the other day, is it David? Is that your other? Yeah, okay. Me and my friends thought his name was Ben for the longest time, so now I call him Ben David, and I can never forget which one's his real name.
That was David.
But like him finding the Celsius and stuff like that, that's just, that's so cool, because like I'm sure like we might think that sounds like silly, like all I want is taco seasoning or something like that, but we're not the ones that are like completely out of our element, and like, you know, we're like so many things. I can't even imagine like all the little things that I walk through in a day that I use that like are just not available there. And so that's just crazy.
Yeah.
So kind of talking about, I've mentioned David, and then the other one is, what's his name? Sam. So what has it been like to get along with the team while you're there?
I would say that while we're in Indo, we function like as a normal team you think would. We live separately. The boys live together, and then I live far, like 30 minutes from them at least. And so we live kind of separate lives and see each other for things that we do together, but I don't live day-to-day life with them necessarily.
Okay.
So we function well as a team, and we get along really well. Being in Malaysia, we've actually lived like together in an apartment. They all have their rooms and I have my room, but we have a kitchen together and a living room together. And so that has pushed our bond to be maybe a little bit more like siblings, I think I would say.
Yeah.
Like we bicker back and forth and like banter back and forth and mess with each other, but at the end of the day we get along pretty well. And I have a great appreciation for them and for their desire to serve and serve me. I think we serve each other well. And yeah, I think overall we definitely have our good days and bad days.
Yeah.
But in general, we get along, and I've learned a lot from communal living near them. They taught me a lot about what it looks like to live with people you didn't grow up with.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm sure that's also a weird experience. I mean, you're just like completely, I don't even know, Caroline. Like you were at home, had your own room, which you still do, but like, you know, you're being thrown in a house with, you know, it's just so different. I can't even.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So kind of to wrap things up, what is a way that everyone listening in that I can be praying for you and your team?
In the near future, pray for safe travels home back to Indonesia. A little bit more long term, I would say pray for homesickness and physical sickness. It's a hard time of year to be away from home, and honestly, being in Malaysia has been another way the Lord's been so kind, because it's been a distraction, and there's so much Christmas here. There's not a lot of Christmas in Indonesia, and there's a lot here. So being here has been really sweet for that. But just as we go home and do Christmas, I think that'll be a hard day and a hard few days for us. But after that, like the countdown is on. Our parents come, and then we go home, and it's gonna fly by. And we're really excited for that. But in the midst of that, I would say pray for us to have continued energy and endurance to finish well, to continue to learn language, to continue to grow relationships with people, and to not just dwell on going home, but to be excited for the time we have left before we go home.
Yeah.
Recently, we were at church here in Malaysia, and we were talking about 1 Peter and how this earth is not our home and all of that. And it was such an encouragement to me, like, we're foreigners. And the pastor was he's American, and he was talking about how we know how it feels to live in a foreign land, but it's given me such a perspective that this earth is not our home. This earth is a foreign land, and one day, like, I'll get to be in heaven, which is truly home. So it's given me such a greater appreciation for that. So with all that, I would say pray for our team for physical sickness, for there to be no more of that, because there's been a lot so far.
Yeah.
For homesickness, just with the holidays and all of that. And then for continued endurance and energy and excitement to finish these last 5 months. We're almost to the end of our third month here.
Yeah, that's crazy. I can't believe you've been going for 3 months.
For the last 5 months, just to finish well.
Yeah, I'll definitely be praying for that. And kind of, I forgot, I was going to say something and then I forgot, but obviously I'll be praying for all of that. But also, what I was going to say about praying for language is, like, if you know English and you hear Indonesian get spoken, you're so confused, because it literally, when we were praying for Caroline before she left, and we have a friend that knows how to speak, Indonesian, and he had lived in Indonesia, and he like prayed over her in Indonesian, and we all heard it, and we were like, so I was like, what is coming out of his mouth right now? I was like, blah, blah, blah. Like, I had no idea what he was saying. We were like, he could be saying anything right now, but it was so funny because I was like, so yeah, definitely just be praying for the language also, because I don't it just doesn't make sense. So yeah.
Yeah, it's been difficult, but honestly, I love it. I love foreign languages, and I love learning them. So
yeah,
to be able to speak another language is exciting.
Yeah, I'm sure it's so cool. All right, well, thank you so much for coming on and joining us today and being first guest back and it's been a hot minute, so yeah.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, and thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.